Stan. Here we are in the loft or place or 4:30. Time for a light refreshment. Now, very nice. Mrs. Stan's part-time now, so she's been out with me all day. Fantastic. Anyway, we all come here for militaria, really, don't we? I mean, that's what we're here for. And I like to think that I do it with a tongue-in-cheek. I don't take myself too seriously. But there's been something I've been meaning to do for a while, and not an easy video for me. I don't mean like in a stressful way. I just wonder whether it's worth doing or not. I'll do this one, and then we'll see how we go. Because I've been doing this a couple of years now. People will know me through YouTube, and I suppose people are wondering where I've been in my life. But the title of this video, Ordinary Life. I've had an ordinary life. I haven't done anything outstanding. I haven't been anywhere. I suppose I've travelled a bit, but I haven't done anything where I can say I haven't trekked through the Amazon rainforest. I've worked with plenty of people just in my engineering trade that have done things more than I have. But my life has been mainly in engineering, and I've had a lot of experience. And it was brought home to me the other week. In this area there was, I think it might have been the biggest blast furnace in Europe, Redcar, and they've just demolished it. And as they blew it up, I thought, bloody hell, I'd worked in there a few times. And then coming home from doing a message with my dad the other week, going past the Seal Sands Industrial Complex, there's another big place there that I spent a lot of my apprenticeship, about at least a year. And a lot of the things that I made will have still been there, and they're pulling it down. I just thought, when you get to a certain age, you know that the world that you inhabited as a youth, it's gone. And that's true of anyone. Someone who was 50 in 1967, the world was very different when they were younger, he or she was younger. But I just think that my line of work has changed so much, and it is changing, and that is simply because there is not the amount of people coming through. I work for a multinational company, I won't say who, but they do struggle with recruitment, as a lot of firms are struggling with recruitment, because there isn't people who are qualified. It's for various reasons, mainly lack of investment. But I'm going to try and make this interesting, but I'm just trying to lay out the groundwork in part one, and we'll see. I want to review this before I put it on, because it's boring and crap. I'm probably doing it for myself, to be honest. My father was, in my line of work, he's a welder. So for those of you who don't know, a welder is somebody who welds steel pipes, and it has to be to a decent standard. Hence, you serve a 4-year apprenticeship. I'm classed as I'll say plater in this video. Now, a plater is a name for a trade in this part of the world. It was traditionally a shipyard name, and basically, imagine a joiner, if you like. You know what a joiner, a carpenter does. A plater does the same, out of steel, and then a welder welds it. It's simple as that. A lot of measuring, a lot of cutting. My experience in life, because all the major industries were collapsing as I was finishing my training, is I've become more what you would call in Australia a boil maker, and that is like, I'll make it and I'll weld it. I'm fairly competent as a welder up to a certain point. Now I'd have really been, oh God, if doing this a few years ago, I'd be embarrassed to do it, because people in my line of work shouldn't talk about the job. But my dad's generation, he's retired, they retire and they die, and my father kept a diary. He's got diaries from the 1980s all the way up to now, mainly to keep an eye on his overtime and stuff like that, but quite often with funny remarks of what he'd seen at work, and the health and safety thing at the very least. I've got good stories and stories and stories, and the world is changing, and I just want to pause for a second. Okay, back in the room. I just had to gather my thoughts out a little bit. Because my father's generation are pushing off, if you like, they're not in the workplace anymore. I mean, I've had, if you include some of the 1 day, 2 day, or a week jobs where it's like, come here, do this, make a platform, weld this thing together, then you're done. I've had 50. I've had more jobs in the years I've been on this planet. Now, some people out there might go, yeah, okay, but where I work now, there's a lot of guys who've been there a long time, or they've had 1 job, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, not 50 odd jobs. And I'm there because it's the type of job you probably should be doing when you get a bit older. It's all on one level. Health and safety's It's the utmost where I work, and nice warm environment. I'm working outside anymore. But I just thought that I would just talk about me past a little bit. So, get on with it. So remember, plater is my trade, if I refer to it. I left school 1985, and why is that pulsing all the time? Bloody cameras. Stop pulsing, you. I'll tell you what, I'll pull the blinds. I'll just pause while I pull the blinds. Try that. Yeah, I left school 85, and basically I pissed around at school. I was in a few O-level classes, and I just threw it all away. I'm not going to blame the teachers or the school, although a lot of turmoil going on in the mid-80s. Teachers were on strike, and these teachers used to go to the pub at dinner time. So if you were there, you were there. If you weren't, you didn't care. And sometimes I was guilty of jumping school. My fault. I think maybe if I don't know, got into a better company, I don't know. It's an odd thing that all the lads I knocked around with at school, I'm probably the one who's done the least in my work life. They've gone on to do better things. So, and we all left school really with hardly anything. But if I'm the bottom of the barrel, I've still done all right, if that makes sense. So anyway, so let's go now. This part of the world, a lot of industry, and I wasn't clever enough to go to university. I know university has changed in the respect it's accessible for all now. Whether I could have gone now, I don't know. It's a bit late in life for that sort of thing. At the time, the clever people went to college, sixth form, then on to university. The people at the other end of the scale probably got unskilled, semi-skilled jobs, or didn't get a job, I suppose. And then the people in the middle, the people who've probably got, a little bit off, generally became apprentices or joined the armed forces. That was another thing. A lot of people in my school did. Now at the time, for me, I just thought I'd just done 18 months in the cadets. I didn't stay in the cadets right at the end. I left school, but I'd done it 83 to 84. And I'll be honest, the discipline, I didn't take to it much. That was something I was a bit cheeky as a teenager, and I didn't know whether I would. I didn't know whether it would suit me. This bloody camera. God, you try and do something. Stop it. Just relax. Right, okay. So I didn't think that would be for me, and I thought the apprenticeship would be the go, and I went to the usual suspects, British Steel, ICI, and literally there was hundreds and hundreds of young men trying to get like 10 apprenticeships. And now this part of the world was changed forever under the Tories in the 90s, Margaret Thatcher's government. I'm going to the politics side of it, but I will say, famous photograph, Margaret Thatcher, walk in the wilderness, 1986, 87, we've seen in handbag walking through a derelict wasteland in the northeast. Well, that wasn't as derelict as the papers made out, really, because that was the old Head Wrightson's fabrication facility taken over by a firm called ITM. How do I know that? Because I had a preliminary interview there the year before she walked in the wilderness, so it wasn't that what derelict, if you know what I mean. I don't know why this camera keeps doing this. It's really starting to piss me off. I might stop this video if it doesn't stop doing what it's doing. Stop. Right. So walk in the wilderness. And then I had to go for another interview, and this is one my dad had set up for me. He wanted to get me an apprenticeship, common thing for people to do, for sons or daughters. Well, no, daughters, women didn't generally go into that sort of thing then, I have to admit. And the next interview was out in the industrial wastelands of Middlesbrough, right out past 2 bus job at least. And I got the bus station in Middlesbrough from my hometown, and I'm like, I don't know, how do I, no one was taking me in a car. I was 15. I was 15, so I wasn't 16 till later on, like right at the very end of leaving school. And so I walked down this busy industrial area road. I don't think there was any footpaths at any point, and I got there. I got down the last 3, didn't get the apprenticeship, which was, my dad was very disappointed. And I realised that basically I was fucked. Nothing to go for. I didn't want to go in the armed forces. And I thought, what am I going to do? Hardly any qualifications because of my own stupidity. And at the time, there was a thing called the YTS, which the government brought out, youth. It was called Youth Opportunities. YTS, very much looked down on the nose by people. If you, at the time, any lad in my year who got an apprenticeship or moving on, if you found out you were in a YTS, would take the piss, basically. And it was a bit of slave labour, really, with I'm just trying to get this cat away. The one other one gets involved, move it, you. That in some places it didn't work out for people. It did work out for me. Now, I went on this scheme at That's the cat. Stop it. I went on this scheme at a place called, I can use the word, NETA. It was a training school. But this place also ran, alongside these training school things, an apprenticeship scheme. Like a proper apprenticeship, 4 years. Now, I went there because I had nothing else. And what they would do is, I think, put you on an 8-10 week training program. And literally, I mean, I remember using hand tools, no gloves. Just, it was a different world, it was a very different world. And I say, like, I realised that I was in trouble, that if I didn't do something, that I was going to be probably, unskilled employment for the rest of my life, which is nothing wrong with that. If that's, but I just thought I had more to offer. Stop chewing. I'll get this cat here. Anyway, so I love her really. I love her. She's my little mate. Anyway, so after me 8-week, 10-week training regime, and the worst thing was, there was 2 lads from my school, friends of mine, who were in that facility, but they were apprentices. How hard's that for a young man, 16-year-old? That's tough. I mean, one of them, a good friend of mine, but his dad got him sorted out. So my uncle had been quite high up in the ICI, and he couldn't do anything for me. You've got to remember, it had gone from being this part of the world that if you had, like, I know I didn't do too well at school, but if you did show promise, if you could pass the tests were all like, I can't remember the exact word for them. A cog goes this way, a cog goes that way. Cognitive tests. I think they're all cognitive tests. Work out the triangle, work out the area of this. The type of person they wanted who can work out mathematical things. I'm not too great with maths considering my job, but I do get by. Scientific calculators, great things. That you'll get an apprenticeship in this area because there was so much industry. But Margaret Thatcher's Tory government, things changed, and it did really, really, really change around here. And it just, the jobs just weren't there. There's a gap. A couple of lads who I played rugby with a couple of years older than me, they really had it hard because there was nothing. It was starting to change a little bit when I came out of school, but still, the traditional ways had gone from the 1960s and 70s where people just went and got an apprenticeship, or the dad got them one. Anyway, so I realised I was in bother. After the 8-10 weeks, I got transferred onto the site, and it works like a works experience. He didn't get much money, 25 quid or something like that. And I went to this place. It was in the old shipyard, and it was just like making handrails and stuff for the offshore industry. And it was really, it was a Victorian building in the old shipyard. I remember one guy dropped a great big fence post thing on my leg, right down my shins, like, hell, I didn't break my leg, I don't only blame me. It's your fault, you stupid little idiot. I was 16-year-old, Very different way going on in the world. Riding my bike with no lights on, no helmet. I actually had a bushy, like, perm wig, not a wig, like a mullet at the time. That'll probably save me. But, a different world again. And stupidly, from the age of 15 till about 17, 18, I smoked as well. Smoking, all my family smoked. I mean, ridiculous when I look back and think. But I realised, again, as I say, that I had to do something. So what I said to the training trust that was like employing me, would it be okay if I went to college? And the traditional way of doing an apprenticeship was 4 days at work, 1 day at college. So they said, yep, you can do that if you want. I think my dad might have paid for it. I'm not sure if the training trust paid. I can't remember. I certainly couldn't have afforded it, whatever it was. So I started going to the local college. This went on for 3 or 4 weeks. Then I was at the college one day and I saw the training trust head fella coming down the corridor. What are you doing here? It was on 2 separate locations. And he said, one of the guys in the apprenticeship scheme has been sacked. So we're going to offer you the chance of it, but you've got to come for a test first. And the situation at the apprenticeship place was, it was called the NASEC course, National Apprenticeship Scheme for Engineering Construction. So I'm not sure 100% how it worked, but something like this. There was lads from all around the country: Cumbria, Liverpool, Sheffield, Yorkshire, Lancashire, Great Yarmouth. Some of the big employers in that area, like Cumbria would have been the Sellafield processing plant, Drax Power Station in Yorkshire, Liverpool was a big firm there, made oil tanks. They would, rather than train their own apprentices, they'd put money into this scheme and they'd say, right, at the end of the year, we want four lads to come on site for us. So basically, the way the scheme ran, instead of the traditional way of 1 day at college, 4 days at work, all of your college and everything was done in the first 2 years. So 3 weeks at the training school, 3 weeks at college, 3 weeks training school. Took all your exams in that time. As soon as you passed them, when you were 18, you went on site for your last 2 years. So you did do a 4-year apprenticeship, but you were there the second time. You were on site for the firm and you didn't go to college. So it didn't interrupt your work experience. And also, I think, especially where I worked, the firm that's long gone now, they would charge the main person you work for, like ICI, tradesman's rate for an apprentice. Very, very clever anyway. So I don't know if it was a union agreement, it was an agreement. I'm going to have to leave that camera flash on like that. Doesn't mean I can't do anything about it. That every group would have a local, 1 or 2 local people in it. And this guy, so these young lads were in digs. One of them had been caught smoking an illegal substance, which was quite strict. I still have my agreement somewhere. It says, signed by my parents, the apprentice, the guardian of the apprentice, all that stuff. It was very official stuff. Been smoking an illegal substance, so they sacked him. So they wanted a replacement. I got that one, and another guy got sacked, so another guy got brought in. And I went for the test, passed the test. There was another lad taking the test as well, but when I got the interview level stage, they just said, we were always going to offer it to you because you've actually done the extra mile. You've put out that you really want to do this. Well, that's not fair enough. Probably the only thing I've ever achieved in my life. Anyway, so they said to me, you have to go to the place you've been doing your little bit of training work, the old shipyard, tell them thank you, but as of tomorrow you are starting with us. So I goes down. So I've been offered an apprenticeship as a plater, a fabricator, a boiler maker, if you like. I goes down to this place. I says, tomorrow I'm going to start as an apprentice. So he went, I was going to offer you an apprenticeship. I said, well, yeah. Oh yeah, we were just been talking about it. We're going to offer you an apprenticeship as a plater in here. So I just think, 2 chances of apprenticeships in my young life, both off my own bat, and both of them in the same trade. I wish I'd been a sparky. Make more money, don't you? Anyway, so by this time, I was 6 weeks behind everybody else. I'd missed the first block of college. And I say, like, maths, I'm all right with maths. I'm all right. But some people are natural. I'm all right at talking, aren't I? You know that. But the maths side of it, I always have to work a bit harder. So being 3 weeks behind, because we would do things like developments. I've got all my old books there. Developing shapes for metal and working out the angles of things. So you had to be on the ball. So I was starting behind to start off with. And also in my first year, I contracted. The doctor called it septic throat, but the guy I work with now, he was in the same year as me, and he said it was something else. I can't remember what he said it was, but he had it as well. So basically, it was I was off work 6 weeks, 7 weeks, maybe longer, and lost loads of weight, and couldn't eat and couldn't swallow, so I was even further behind. And I do believe that my first year exams, I failed not to retake them, I think, and that would have been the reason why, because I was 2 lots of college behind. So right, so get on with it. So here's young Stan, at the end of his 2nd year apprenticeship. There's me. You see me? A full head of Rick Astley hair, an old pair of ICI overalls, and the reason the red dots on it is because we'd had like a film crew thing filming the place, and they said, you can't have that on there, we don't work for ICI. So anyway, so yeah, it was a very strict apprenticeship, very different. And I look back and I remember we went to a local college, Longlands College, and there was a Dr. Smith, a lecturer, and he was quite rotund. He had a white frock coat on, and he had us in the workshop one day, and we were all 16, 17, and he said, I'd just like to tell you lads, my wife is expecting a baby. And a friend of mine, very close friend of mine, cheeky bugger like me, he had very long thin fingers, and he went, ooh, when is the bundle of joy due? On his stomach. Next thing, they're rolling around the floor, like play fighting with each other, with my mate shouting, get him off me, the fat bastard. That just would not work nowadays. That would not happen. It would be bad for the student, the apprentice, and it would be bad for the lecturer as well. We also had an old guy who was a Wellington bomber crew, and we were going about the war. One of the lads sawed the leg of his chair in half, so when he sat on it collapsed, and he rolled over and jumped up and said, I can parachute roll, and walked out. He also had I think he was a Professor Krauss with the steel grey hair and a limp. I'm not sure if he did actually have a German accent. Also, there was another lecturer, and I won't say his name because I saw him not long ago. I know where he lives. He still lives near me, and he was probably a bloke in his 30s at the time. Again, you couldn't do this. I'm not saying it's the old days were better. It's just the way it was and how things were. And he was very forthright in his opinions about everything. And one of the guys in the class was a little bit overweight, spotty. But like all young lads at that age, cheeky. And I remember he said something one day, and the lecturer just turned around and went, "You'll still be a virgin, you, aren't you? Won't you? Why don't you get yourself a girlfriend, son? Like, get rid of some of your excess energy." I mean, like, just... You couldn't say that to a student nowadays. I'm not going to say if I think quite rightly or not. It's just the way the world was, like refreshment. Yeah, so that was the... and we also used to do, general studies, which was the first sign of maybe the more modern way of thinking that you should... I remember we did an exercise where, with this general studies lecturer, one of us had to pretend to be the homeowner or the estate agency. They wanted to ring up and ask if he could view the house. And obviously we were all just fooling around, you know. But we did have to do lectures, like maybe they do in the army. Pick a subject and maybe a sign of things to come. I still have the book somewhere, the Guinness Book of Tanks, Facts and Feats. I did a presentation about tanks. That was the one I do remember I did really well. I did get sent back to the training school once for about, and went back to the training school, and I'll say his name, Mr. Downey. Didn't like me. He was the chief instructor, but he's stocky fellow, didn't take no shit. And he got me in the office and he said, "Don't you realise you're being given a second chance at educating yourself, and we're paying for it? He said, don't throw it all away, son, because I will get you sacked." Very, very blunt, matter of fact. There was no pissing around in them days. In the training school itself, many lecturers. There was an old guy who did the rigging course. I'm terrible at tying knots. I mean, it was one of the first things we did, and I just can't do it. You know, clove hitch businesses, all that carries on. I'm all good. But he taught us. I just kind of been listening. And he was a guy who fought in the African campaign in the deserts, World War II. He'd tell you about that. A lot of these fellas are dead now. They will be dead. The Storman was a guy who looked like Vincent Price. He had a tie on, smoking. Just everyone smoked everywhere. You get smoking. And he'd go up to the thing and say something like, "Can I ever meet a ruler?" And he'd go, "Son, you want to meet a rule. A ruler is the King of England." So that's how things were. And we were told in no uncertain terms, if you've got nothing to do, don't sit on your ass, file a bolt, do something. And it stuck with me all my working life, that. Our first year fabrication instructor, old guy, Mr. Ainsley. I'll say the names if they're probably dead, or I'm not going to say anything derogatory about them. But he used to sit there with his pipe like a sloped lectern. Like that. You could just see his head, his glasses. And he was making model trains. He used to hand build these model trains, steam engines. I don't know if he bloody did it, but that was his thing. If we were like fooling around, he'd just go, "Here, you, pack that in," and back to his business again. The guy we had in our second year, I see him every now and again, Paul. He's still alive now. He's been at our rugby club, and he's a great fella. He really was a nice fella. He was probably only in his 30s, so that's probably why we got on with him more. He had an MG BGT, which we all thought was great. And apart from throwing a paper airplane at him once, which he turned down and nearly shoved it into a place where I'd have to get it surgically removed. I think we all got on with him. He was a nice bloke. But Mr. Downey, the chief instructor, he would walk through the place. Now again, think about this happening nowadays. He'd walk through, and if you were sat at the bench with your vice, just filing stuff, you were sat on the bench, he'd go, "Get off your ass!" And you had to get up, talk and get it. You had to. I sometimes explain it to the younger lads that I work with now. It's like these lads are just sat on the phones like that, like you just weren't allowed to behave like that. And years later, I went to the local rugby club. There was a chess thing on a Friday night, old guys. And I thought, that's Dennis, that. Obviously long retired. He is dead now, I know he's passed away. And my mate went up to him. My mate served his apprenticeship there as well. And he went, "Hello, Dennis, remember me?" He went, "Oh, hello, son, I remember you. Well, I remember you, son." I went, "Hello, Dennis, remember me?" He went, "Plater, cheeky bastard." I just carried on playing chess. I mean, I did see him years ago at like a, not a, it wasn't a toy fair, it wasn't a military fair, it was probably just an antiques thing. And he built a scale model of a Tiger tank out of stainless steel from scratch. And it fired blanks, 303 blanks. I know that because I was Wigan. I didn't go and introduce myself because I knew what he thought of me. And I did read in the paper he passed away in about 7 or 8 years ago. And I'm sure he donated that Tiger tank to the Tank Museum Bovington. But I have been down there, I didn't see it. But, you know, I probably deserved everything I got. I did deserve everything else. I was a cheeky sod, you know, so, but if he's looking down on me now watching, I always stay off my ass. I don't sit down at work. I do get on with my job. If anyone from work's watching, of course, I get on with my job anyway. So, that's that about the training school. It's probably going on. I was going to try and do this in, like, installments. So, I mean, I don't know whether... I'll probably cut it off at that because otherwise I'll end up going on for far too long. That was the training school. And we built all sorts of things there. We built a helicopter out of heavy gauge steel. And what they were doing with that was they would send it to the fire brigade to the Teesside Airport. They set fire to it. Because it's made of high grade steel, you can burn it and burn it and burn it and burn it. I don't know if it probably still won't be there now. We also made some of the masts for the Warrior, HMS Warrior. We made some of the spars because they couldn't find the tradesmen to make them out of wood, apparently. So it was in effect, it was a long cone. So maybe 6 inches at this end diameter, but the other end, 5.5. So we made all those in 2 halves, welded up, put end plates on. I remember I welded my name in the inside. So it's still down there in Portsmouth somewhere. It'll be up there. We did, you know, little heritage railways. We did bits of that. Lots of little projects that we did ourselves to get us ready for going on site. I'll try and do it at a different angle next time. And all the cars that we had in the car park were all, you know, everyone had a Mark 1 Escort, Mark 2 Escort, Mark 4 Cortinas. Different days, so everyone smoked. And it was quite it did save me from I don't know what sort of fate where I'd end up working. It gave me opportunities, and finished there just on my 18th birthday. And then we had 6 weeks off, and then we went on to site for the last 2 years of our apprenticeship, which is another story. I ended up working for Redpaths, which were a big company at the time, and yeah. So I mean, I'm probably doing this for my own, like I say, for my own memory, my own sort of story, if you like, and it probably will be a lot. It'll be a lot to tell because I've had a different life, and that's half an hour of me talking. But what I'll do is I'll upload it, and if you think it's worth it, just give me a thumbs up. If you don't, you don't have to give me a thumbs. You can give me a thumbs down if you want. If you just think it's me talking shit and it's not going to be worth it. I mean, I've never saved anyone's life. I've never done anything fantastic really. I've had an ordinary life. But just in a different time, and the world seems to have caught up with my line of work now in some respects, and the places that I've been, a lot of them are being demolished, and the conditions I worked in, that's for another video. I mean, I have empathy for when you see old footage of miners working down a coal mine, because I've certainly been somewhere near that. I'll tell you, it's not long term, but enough. So I'll cut the video off there. That's Stan leaving school and getting an apprenticeship, and we are now 18 and going out on site, listening to the Wham and all the other stuff we used to do when we were teenagers, and smoking like a bugger. Right, so if you want me to do part 2, I will. If you don't, I'd rather you say don't. But we'll see. This is Stan. See ya.